An elderly woman was traveling on a plane, seated next to a wealthy young businessman. After finishing her meal, she took out her Bible and began reading and praying. Curious and slightly amused, the businessman glanced over and asked, "Do you honestly believe everything written in that book?" "Yes, I absolutely do," she responded sincerely. The man laughed and said, "Come on, you really think stories like that, the guy who spent a night in the den of hungry lions and came out without a scratch?" The lady said, "You mean Prophet Daniel?" "Yes, Daniel." "You think that really happened?" The lady replied, "Yes, and I will ask him about it when I see him in heaven." The young man complained, "Well, what if he is not in heaven but in hell?" The lady smiled and replied, "Then you can ask him yourself." Well, there are quite a lot of stories like that. Moses split the Red Sea into two parts, and they all crossed, right? And also, Jesus turning the bread into his flesh, turning the wine into his blood. But the thing is, we all believe in these true stories. And what a kind of amazing thing. This previous week, Jesus told quite a lot of parables in order to explain the mysteries of kingdom. Last Monday, Jesus told the crowds two parables to describe the kingdom of heaven. He said it is like a mustard seed, the smallest seeds that grows into a large bush, giving shelter to birds. And he also said it is like yeast, which a woman makes with flour until the entire dough is unleavened. Jesus used parables to reveal hidden truths, fulfilling the prophecy that he would speak in parables to uncover mysteries hidden since the beginning of the world. And also last Wednesday, Jesus told his disciples that the kingdom of heaven is like a hidden treasure or a priceless pearl, so valuable that a person joyfully gives up everything to obtain it. And last Thursday, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven again is like a net that gathers all kinds of fish. When full, the good are kept, the bad are thrown away. Just as at the end of the age, angels will separate the wicked from the righteous. He then said that those instructed in the kingdom are like wise householders who draw on both old and new wisdom. Today as well, in the gospel, when a person from the crowd approached, "Well, sir, teacher, tell my brother to share the inheritance with me." He replied to him, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbitrator?" And then he told this parable. Well, the parable is about another man, who got lots of harvest, even no place to share, no place to keep it, so built the man in order to keep all those things. So we really have to pay attention to listen carefully to all these parables. And there is a beauty and truth in it. So today, the parable Jesus mentioned is to tell us that greed is the problem, and it can be the obstacles in order to attain or gain the heavenly kingdom. So therefore he says, "Well, take care to guard against all greed, for though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions. So here are quite a lot of people, who really like to keep things. Well, might have their oppositions or might have the thoughts against it. Well, Catholic Church doesn't say to give up everything. Catholic Church defend, Catholic social teaching defend the private ownership. But however, we really have to listen carefully the teaching of Jesus. Jesus also doesn't against the private ownership. So I will mention that later. But however, why greed can be, grave sin, one of the 7 deadly sins. So here's the answer from St. Thomas Aquinas. It is an immoderate love or possession. For Aquinas, this sin is fundamentally spiritual. It is a sin against God. How can that be? Well, just as all mortal sins, inasmuch as man condemns things eternal for the sake of temporal things. So here's the questions. Do we really care or look for the things which is eternal? Or are we trying to grab the things which is earthly and temporal? So that's what Thomas Aquinas mentioned. Where inasmuch as man condemns things eternal for the sake of temporal things, that's the grave sins. And in other words, greed involves valuing worldly possessions over eternal values and spiritual well-being. As a consequence, it does not simply stand alone. It gives rise to other sins such as theft, fraud, lying, treachery, violence, and insensibility to mercy. You will probably remember 4 weeks ago when I preached about the Good Samaritan, I mentioned about what has been going on in my country, about the civil wars and millions of people who are displaced. But however, there are groups of people who took advantage to steal the properties of these displaced people houses, to rob from these displaced people. So no more mercy, insensibility to mercy. So these, things happen because of greed. So brothers and sisters, we really have to take it seriously. What Jesus says and reminds us to guard against all greed, which can lead us to lose eternal things. And then he continued to mention a parable about a rich man who stored up a great harvest and planned to enjoy a life of ease. But God called him a fool. Why? Seeing he would die that very night, and all his wealth would be left behind. Therefore, in the first reading today, vanity is vanity. Well, there's a things we can ask. Well, God says everything's created is good. How can these things can be vanity is vanity? So Thomas Aquinas mentioned again, this book is about, the book of nature and trying to explain without God, all these things can be vanity without God. But if all these things reflect the glory of God, the beautiful creation of God, then these things can be the path to eternal glory. So, therefore, here Jesus continued to mention, those who store up earthly treasure but are not rich in what matters to God. So in the second reading today, St. Paul to Colossians, he encouraged the Colossians, think of what is above, not of what is on earth. Put to death the parts of you that are earthly, immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and the greed that is idolatry, which means, not putting God at the first place, but other things on the place of God. So then, how can we stay have the right of the private ownership which the Catholic Church defend? Well, the right of the public ownership is not, the absolute possessions, but to be the good steward. So I would like to want you to remember the proverb from last Monday, which is about the mustard seed, small seed. We all are like these small mustard seeds, but have the potency to be the big tree. But not for our own sake, but, to provide the homes for thousands of birds. And another, parable Jesus mentioned is about when, it is about the good stewardship. When the owner of the vineyard go away, he left, his tenants like 50, 30, and 10. But however, when he came back, what he saw was, the one who received 50, where he profit another 50. The one who was left with 30, he profit with 30. But the other one who has 10, which, he cannot do anything with 10, so he just buried in the ground. So that's what happened. But however, the owner saw it and then give the one who profit more and then from the other people. So brothers and sisters, we are called to be rich as well, but to be rich in what matters to God, which is to be the good steward. So I would like to conclude, not to try to be a good steward to gain more wealth and power, but to gain the eternal kingdom. To be a good big tree, not to be, for our own sake, but, to be able to make the homes for thousands. So today, let us remember what Jesus taught us, to guard ourselves from all greeds, but, to look and then try to attain the heavenly kingdom.